All right. Yes, we can see your screen. Yes, thank you.
All right. Should I start?
Yes, please.
All right. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining the class today. My name is Olajumoke, and I'll just be running us through the Information Systems Project Management 2. I know we already did for 1. My name, like I said earlier, my name is Olajumoke Akingbemila. We'll be starting the class now. So about the course is Information Systems Project Management 2, and the program is Diploma in Information Systems, as DIS. The level is advanced and is a continuation of the Information Systems Project Management 1. The focus in this class will be practical execution, delivery, and real-world IT project management. There'll be assessments like case studies, capstone projects, then there'll be a written examination. Also, the program outcomes will be to plan and execute real-world IT projects, apply scheduling, budgeting, and risk tools, lead and manage cross-functional teams, monitor, control, and deliver IT projects, handle change requests professionally. We'll also learn to conduct project closure and documentation. And also, lastly, to build a career, which is more important in IT project management. So let's look at the recap of Information Systems Project Management 1. During that class, you were taught Introduction to Project Management Concepts and Frameworks, which is the project phases, which is initiation, planning, execution, monitoring, and control, then closing. You also learn to understand the SDLC and project phases, which is software development lifecycle. Like I said earlier, the phases are initiation, planning, execution, monitoring, and controlling, and also closing. You also learn stakeholder identification and communication basics, reasons why you should communicate, how communication is so important in project management for project managers, to the team members and stakeholders. Also, we learned introduction to Agile and waterfall methodologies, how all of these methods can be used in managing projects, right? So learning objective in this class will be to define project scope, prevent scope creep, and document project requirements. We'll also be applying scheduling techniques, including the critical path method, that's CPM. CPM is critical path method. Also, we'll build and manage IT project budgets using practical estimation techniques. We'll execute IT projects, manage teams, delegate tasks, and communicate effectively, which is very important in project management. We'll also monitor project progress using KPIs and handle delays and changes. We'll also apply quality assurance and change management in live IT projects. So let's start. The advanced project planning, which is a scope definition, documentation, and preventing scope creep. So what is really a project scope? What do we define as a project scope? When you want to start a project, when you hear scope, what really does it mean? So project scope is defined as the boundaries of a project, what is included and what is not. You know, when you have a project, you've already stated that you want to start a project. The first thing to really do is after planning, you should have a scope. You should really know what you want to do. You should be certain, you should be sure about the scope so that you don't have scope creep. You don't go beyond what you've written down. You don't go beyond the plan of that project. So it is very important to have a scope defined in that project, right? Also, you need to have a well-defined scope. Okay, let's just, like I said earlier, projects that does not have a scope is just going to go, it won't go smoothly because you start having scope creep, you start saying, oh, add this to this, add this to this. It will just make you very confused. Yeah, we have that a well-defined scope prevents misunderstanding between clients, teams, and management. It's just very clear so that when you are sharing this scope with your team members and stakeholders, everyone involved in that project. It is clear to everyone. But once there is no scope, you're just saying, oh, we're doing this. After this, we're doing this. It doesn't make it clear at all. It might be clear to you as a person, but for every other person that is involved in that project, it would definitely not be clear. And I'm sure in these days that we are right now, you can't even start a project without a scope. If you're really going to have clients that you're meeting with and your team members, even top management, right, they will definitely request for a project scope. The project scope statement is a formal document describing deliverables, constraints, and assumptions, right? This is a document where it is clearly stated how deliverables will go on, how the whichever constraints and then assumptions, your risk, your issues, it will just be in this scope. It will be clear. It will be, yeah, it will be very clear to everybody that picks up this document for this particular project, right? So in Nigeria, before building an e-commerce platform in Lagos, you would like to define feature list, payment system, delivery integration, and excluded features. This is just an example when you want to build an e-commerce platform in Lagos, right? This is just explaining certain things that will be in your scope document. Scope is also agreed upon all stakeholders before any development begins, right? Before you even start anything at all on this particular project, you are going to all agree on your scope. You can come up with a scope and then another person is saying, oh, this is what it is. Let's do this way. All of these discussions is very good to come up at the decision-making phase so that we all agree and come up with a scope document. You also use a scope baseline, approved scope statement plus WBS plus also the WBS dictionary, right? WBS is a work breakdown structure, and also there's something we call the work breakdown dictionary. So you all use these things to approve your scope statement, to approve your scope document, right? Using also an approved scope statement. You review scope at every sprint or milestone to ensure alignment. So when you're done with a particular phase on the project, you are going to review your scope just to be sure that you're in alignment of everything you stated that you will be doing on that particular project. Then you move on to the next sprint or the next milestone, which is also you can call a phase. Right. So we have some scope documentation tools, your project charter. This project charter is also a document like an high-level scope approval where top management has sign on it, where we have the client see it and approve it. Team members, everyone is accessible to this document. Also, we have the scope statement, detailed written boundaries for everyone working on this project. We have the work breakdown structure, that's a WBS. We have the requirement traceability matrix. Also use case diagrams, UML, and we also use stakeholder sign-off sheets. This is where it is signed off that the stakeholders approve of this particular scope, right, on the document so that we don't have clashes whereby you're saying that, oh, this thing that you're doing, it wasn't stated that it will be done. You can bring out the sign-off sheet to show that, oh, you approved this particular thing. That is why we are doing it. We didn't go out of scope, right? I hope we understand. So let's move on to preventing scope creep. So really, what is even scope creep in the first place? Scope creep is when you're not even sure of what you're not sure what you're doing, right? Yeah, we have that. It's the gradual, uncontrolled expansion of project scope without adjusting time, budget, or resources, right? Where you're not sure of something and you're just saying, oh, let's add this to it, let's do this to this. There's no clear explanation or direction to what we really want to get on the project, right? It's just like you're saying, just add one more thing to this thing, and then those small additions, they pile up, right? And then it's going to make the project look slower, it's going to make it look wider, more than what you actually planned for initially. So the best thing to do is always define it clearly in your project scope what you really want to do, so to avoid scope creep. And then you should also state clearly that after this, there's really no coming in to say, add one more thing to this, add one more thing to this. So I would like to also say that is there an avenue for change? Yes, that's why we have a change log, where when any change occurs, you should be able to document all of these things, and then everyone is aware. Just the way you circulated the scope document, you also circulate this change documents, change log documents, so that they are also aware that certain changes has occurred or will occur on this project. That way, everyone is aware, and when things are being done, it will be clear that a change document was shared and we are aware that this is happening, right? So what are the common causes? Clients add small feature requests that accumulate into major changes, which cause challenges, right? Because it's not clear from the onset. Let's use a real world example. Like I said earlier, an e-commerce project in Lagos starts with basic cart features, then clients request loyalty points, delivery tracking, Arabic language support. So the first thing um the the client has requested for was maybe just an e-commerce project in Lagos. We start with basic things, and then from there you're saying, oh, add this to it. But it was not clearly stated from the very beginning. So it just brings up a lot of misalignments. There's no clear direction for everyone working on that project. That's why it's very good to have a meeting with the team members, with top management, with your clients in itself, and every stakeholders, so that we can be sure and know exactly what we need to do on this particular project. And again, if there needs to be a change when the project has started, we should document every change in the change log and communicate to every other person. Every change request must go through a formal change control process, right? There's a process to these things. You should always go through the change control process, the change request. When you realize that, oh, something was not done right, yeah, we need to put it in. You should go through the change control process and do it appropriately. Project managers must document, evaluate, and approve or reject all change requests. Yes, as a project manager, you have the right to actually reject change requests if you feel like it's not really necessary in this project. Without it, we can actually move forward. Or if it's going to cause a problem on the project, then you can reject it, right? You also need to evaluate and, document. Documentation is very important in project management. I say this always, that documentation is very, very important. As a project manager, you should document every of your change requests, right? You also use a change log to track all scope modifications with dates, requester, and impact. When a change is made, you should be able to track it. You should be able to state clearly in a document, that's your change log document. You should be able to state clearly the date this change was requested, who requested for the change, and the impact it will cause on the project, right? All of these things will help you moving forward on the project. It also helps you to track all of the changes that would occur on the project. You set a scope freeze date, after which no new features are accepted for the current release, right? So because we're using an e-commerce project, we're going to say, okay, let's set a scope freeze date. This point, no change is going to come in at this point. Let's finish this phase, then we'll move on to the other one. If we can accommodate the change, then that's fine, right? So you need to be very, what's the word now? You just need to set a scope freeze date and be sure about that, and circulate it to every other person on that project. So what are the scope creep warning signs, right? We have clients say, just add a small addition, help me put this thing. It's nothing serious. Let's just do this. We can add this. No, right? These are warning signs to show that there's a scope creep coming up, right? Developers adding unrequested features to what they are doing, team unclear on what's included. Because the truth is, once you have a clear scope, your team members do not even need to, they don't need to ask you so much of questions because it is very clear. Also, as a project manager, when you're writing your scope document, you should write them in simple words so that anybody that picks up the document is able to clearly understand what you mean or what you say would happen on that particular project. Also, budget and timeline slipping without changes. So when there's budget and timeline slipping without changes, that should be a sign that then there's going to be a scope creep on this particular project. Also, stakeholders disagreeing on deliverables, no change request documentation, then there's a problem, really. When you're just accepting all of the changes, you're not documenting them, you're not evaluating them, no approvals, there's nothing to show that this change was made at a certain time, then there's going to be a big problem. That's scope creep warning signs, which we all as a project manager or aspiring project manager should look out for. So let's move on to scheduling and time management, right? So task sequencing and scheduling fundamentals. So task sequences identifies the logical order in which project activities must be performed, right? Also, predecessors' tasks must be completed before successors' tasks can begin, right? We have types of task dependencies. That's we have the start to finish. We also have the start to start. We have the finish to finish, right? I'm going to explain to us what we mean by finish to start, start to finish, and also finish to finish, right? So we also have the Gantt chart. I'll explain that to you. We also have the Gantt chart, which is the virtual bar showing task, duration, and timeline. It's actually a popular tool that is used in the project management office. Most project managers use it during their projects, to clients, and to stakeholders. We have network diagram, PERT, and CPM. This shows task dependencies and identifies the critical parts, right? We also have buffer time. This one adds contingencies buffer, like when you're doing accounts of the project, things that you're supposed to expect, you're supposed to add like a 10 to 20% for accounts for unexpected delays. You're not even sure certain things that will happen, right? PERT is actually like a program evaluation and review technique. That's the network diagram. That's what it is used for on most projects. And we have CPM. CPM is the critical path methodology or method, and most project managers use them, right? So Nigerian example, like a mobile app project, database design must finish before backend development starts. When you're building a mobile app, definitely you have to have the database design first before backend development to start, right? I also said I was going to explain better what finish to start and start to start and finish to finish means. So most times when you have finish to start, this is like the most common one that we see among projects here in Nigeria, is when a project starts, like we start it before we then finish the project. I don't know if that makes sense to you. I don't know if I'm supposed to explain further to you. A task, it must finish before the next task can start. I think it's better that way. Before you can move on to the next phase of a project, you need to finish the one that was started. You know, we have some projects whereby when you get on the project, you can just, walk around everything, move from one phase to the other phase, and then do it simultaneously. But in this type of task, finish to start, that's FX, you need to finish a task before you move on to the next tax. That's what the start and the finish to start is about. Also, for start to start, it's this cannot start until another task has started, right? You cannot start a project until the next one has started. You cannot start a phase until the next project has started. That's what the start to start is about, right? And for the finish to finish, a task cannot finish until another task finishes. So this is like working simultaneously, right? You have to finish once you are done with this task. And the kind of project that I do, we cannot even, once you're done with a particular project and you have other pending things on the other projects, you cannot even close out that project until you finish every phase on that project, right? That's the short explanation for that. So what are these scheduling tools? Microsoft Project Enterprise Scheduling. We have Trello, we have Asana, these are visual task boards. We have Google Sheets Gantt for simple projects. We have Jira. We have Agile Sprint scheduling. Well, Jira can be used for Agile Sprint scheduling. It's just like a document that helps you track your projects on a weekly basis or daily basis, if just depending on what the project is about. We also have ClickUp. It's an all-in-one project management tool. We also have Projects Libre. This is free Microsoft project alternative, right? But I know the most popular one people use in the Nigerian project management office is the Trello and Jira. And maybe some people use Google Sheets. We also have Excel in some places. My office, we use some of Excel too, right? So what are these critical path methods? The CPM, step by step. We'll list all tasks. You identify every activity required to complete the project. You include duration estimates in days. So you have to list all of these things when you're looking at the CPM. You define dependencies, define which tasks must finish before others can begin. You draw dependencies arrow. You do it like a diagram so that it will be clear for anybody who picks it to see it. You also draw the network diagram, right? You create a network diagram showing all tasks as nodes and dependencies as arrows, just for clarifications. You also calculate early start to finish. You also calculate early start or finish, any one of the two, right? Forward pass, add durations from left to right. Early start plus duration is equals to early finish. You have all of these things calculated, right? Just for easier understanding. Also, you calculate late start to finish, backward pass, subtract from project end date to find latest allowed start times. You also find the critical path. Task with zero floats, that's from Slack, form the critical path. Any delay here delays the project. For every delay we have on any project, you actually have a way to delay the entire project, which as a project manager, you do not want such to happen. I'm sure you understand this part clearly as we go on in the class. So let's look at cost management and budgeting. This is looking at the estimation techniques, budget planning, and managing limited resources. So we have project budgeting basics, right? So a project budget is the total estimated cost of all resources needed to complete the project. So during the planning phase of a project, we also discuss budgeting. How much would go into this project? Is it worth it? Is it something that we are willing to put into such projects? What are our benefits from this project when you put certain amount of money or this budgeted amount of money to this project, right? So project budget covers the HRs, their salaries, technology tools that will be used, servers, infrastructure, and contingencies funds, right? All of these things are going to be included in the project budgeting. We also look at Nigerian mobile app projects. We're looking at developer salaries. That's if you are going to be using the Nigerian mobile app project as an example, we're going to look at the developer salaries, hosting, that's the AWS, Digital Ocean, the domains, the UI tools, testing devices. There are plenty other examples. It's just like you want developers to build a house for you. You're handing over to developers. All of the artisans that will be working on that building, you look at their salaries, how you want to pay them, for how many months will they be on this project. You're going to look at all of these things. The timeline for the project will be needed to include whether you want to pay them monthly or on a daily basis. All of these things will be added to create a budget, which is very important. Even in the space of the space where you have a consultant that works for clients. You need to put all your consultants you need to put them in cover of the project budget. So when you're saying you're working for a client for 3 months, it should be 3 months, because basically that's what you've planned for them. You've planned that, okay, for example, this consultant to be paid 100,000 monthly. And then you've factored all of those things inside the what's it now? Inside, permit me, I'm looking for the right word. Inside the invoice that you've given to the client. You've included all of that. So imagine when it goes beyond 3 months, then there's a slack, there's a problem somewhere. Who would then fix to pay all of those things? So everything needs to be done appropriately and covered, right? So bottom-up estimation, you estimate each tax individually, then sum up for total project cost. You're going to be needing tools, you're going to be needing you're going to be needing the HR, you're going to have other people working with you, your team members. You're going to sum up all of these things with every other needs that will be on the project that requires funds. You're going to add them together for a total project cost. That's the bottom-up estimation. Top-down estimation, allocate a fixed total budget and divide across phases. Divide across all the phases that you've put together to say this is the cost of this project, right? Parametric estimation, use historical data, e.g., a similar app costs 2 million in 2023. Now rate it down to, we are in 2026 now. How much do you think would have topped it up looking at 2023 to 2026? Just something that you know that even across board, not just here right now, everything is now expensive. Things are expensive across board. So you're going to use like a parametric estimation to just estimate what you think it is right now in 2026, right? Always include a 10 to 15% contingency reserve for unforeseen costs. Things can occur. Things can happen at every time. You need to budget for it. Miscellaneous, you need to have 10 to 15% contingency for unforeseen costs. You're building a house. Anything can happen, really. Anything can happen. You can just meet, all these agberos. Just, you didn't plan for them initially because you didn't think they will show up, or maybe you added them to the budget and then you didn't expect that there will be a whole lot of them, but they are requesting for way beyond what you budgeted. So if you have this 10 to 15%, you are able to cover up, and then there'll be no issues on your budgeting basics. I hope that explains it, right? So for cost categories, we have labor cost, that's for the developer, the project manager, and the quality assurance team members, their salaries. That is very important. You should put that's your labor cost. Software licenses and SaaS tools, that should also be put in consideration. Cloud hosting and infrastructure, hardware and testing devices, training and onboarding costs. That's also very important. Communication and collaboration tools. What collaboration tools are we using? How much does this collaboration tools how much does this collaboration tools cost? Everything will be included. Also, the contingency and risk reserve. That's the 10 to 15% contingency we spoke about. That should also be put in this category, and it should also be budgeted for. What are the common budget mistakes that are made on projects? We also have here how to fix them. So the common mistakes are underestimating developer time for complex features, right? You underestimate that, oh, this developer, you meet up with the time. Is it not this, of which these features are very complicated. They're complex. It's not something that you thought, maybe you thought they could do it in a month, and then they are here now saying that, oh, this is a very complex features. This will take instead of 1 month, it's going to take like 3 months. So then we come again to communication. When you are budgeting all of these things, you speak to these people. You agree with them, and then you should really sign off on the agreement to be sure that there was an agreement and we both agree that this is what you would accept, this is what you are able to do. When all of this communication do not happen, this is where we have problems. And this is a major mistake that majority of people do. Also, forgetting recurring cloud hosting costs. This is important. These are mistakes that are also made. Not budgeting for bug fixes after launch, skipping contingency reserve entirely, ignoring hidden costs like taxes, transaction fees, Lego. These are very important, and there are mistakes that are being made. Not tracking actual versus planned spend weekly. I mentioned earlier that you can decide to plan this budget weekly, monthly, or maybe you want to pay them 2 weeks. After every 2 weeks, that's when you want to give each and everyone their salaries or their take-homes, right? You need to track all of these things and be able to know the actual time you want to pay and when you plan, whether weekly or monthly. So what are the ways to fix these mistakes? Use effort-based estimation, not wishful thinking. You've worked on, there's every possibility that you've worked on a similar project before. So don't just come up with something. Don't just say, oh, I think it should be this way. You can use previous budget plans. Can use previous budget plan that you've worked on to estimate. List all recurring costs in a monthly cost sheet. Right? When you have this, you are able to plan correctly. You are able to plan your budget correctly when you have a monthly cost, like a sheet. You can see, the truth is, if you can't even do this yourself, you really can hire like an accountant or somebody to help you work with this to get a really perfect details or something accurate, right? Don't necessarily have to be the one to do this. But of course, you should also be aware and be informed about what is going on regarding budgeting. Reserve 15 to 20% of budget for post-launch support. Always include 10% contingency reserve minimum. I'm sure that by now this already sinks in because it is repeated. And for it to be repeated, there's a reason why it is being repeated. It most likely would have caused a whole lot of issues on so many projects, right? Review every cost line with your finance team. Review every cost line with your finance team. Make them aware. Be open to them. Like I said, they can also be of help to you when it comes to this. Use end value analysis to track spend. Use end value analysis to track your spending on this project, on any particular project, right? So we have the project execution, managing teams, delegation, task tracking, and then communication. So managing project teams during execution. Execution is where plans meet reality. This is the most intensive phase of any IT project, right? when you want to start the project, when you want to execute the project. This is like the reality of this project. Now we are here, we're about to begin, right? This is very intensive. It's an intensive phase of any IT project. The project manager's role shifts from planner to coordinator, motivator, and problem solver. Now, the project has started. You would have to coordinate your team very well. Initially, you were the planner. You were the one trying to fix budgets. You were the one trying to make sure you get the right people to do the work. You're the one trying to bring everybody together, writing the scope. But now that we've gotten to the execution part, you would now be like a coordinator, a motivator, a problem solver. Your team members have issues, they're not able to show up. You come up with something, a solution, right? You would some team members on your team, they are just overwhelmed with everything that is happening. There are family issues. These are things that you have to come into, because if you do not, it would definitely cause a problem on your project. And at the end of the day, you would be the one to take all of the blames. So you need to be involved with your team members. You need to know what is going on with them. You need to coordinate them appropriately. You need to motivate them. Motivation comes in different forms. It could just be by encouraging words. It could even be some little funds here and there to just support them. It could be lunch, something just to show that, oh, I see you, well done, right? These are some of the project management roles that will be shifted to when you are executing a project. You also assign tasks based on skill sets, not just availability. You use the right person for the right job, right? So in my organization, we try as much as we can when you are learning, when you are in this particular field, we also try to make you skilled in this other part. Why? Anything can happen on a project. When you bring in somebody to do something, there can be a family emergency that is beyond us. But because this other person is aware about this other project, or is able to work on that particular thing, we can bring the person in if available, and then they'll do the job perfectly. Some people just bring in people, other people on a project that they do not even know anything about. It causes an issue. It's a risk, a very big risk. So you have to assign tasks based on skill sets, not just because this person is available. Oh, bring the person, let the person do the work. Is available. It really does not have anything it's doing. No, it doesn't work that way in IT project management. It's a big risk that shouldn't be allowed, right? Daily stand-ups. 15 minutes is fine. 10 minutes is fine. So you're going to just basically talk about, what did you do on this project this day? How did it go? What will you do next? Any blockers, any issues, any risk? Is there something that is wrong? What do you think is going on? Just kind of engagement meeting with the project managers and the team members. It's called a daily stand-up, right? And this usually shouldn't be more than 15 minutes, right? Depending on conversations that goes on. It's just telling me, this is where you are. This is what you've done. This is what I'm going to do next. These are the issues that I have. These are the blockers I'm facing. And we'll talk about how to resolve all of these issues. After that, we'll move on to we're back to work. But this daily stand-up should be done. It could be daily, it could be twice a week, 3 times a week. It could even be once a week, depending on the kind of project, right? So weekly team meetings, you review sprint progress stats, you review the phases that you are in, address risk, and recalibrate timelines, right? So you're going to say that this week we're supposed to do like an audit next week, but because of certain issues, we might have to move the audit to another week. We would all talk about it. If it's something that works for us, then we are going to see to it to change it. We also address certain risks that we think might occur on the project. If there are issues, we're also going to resolve it. We also review sprint progress, the phases that we've gone through, this phase that we are in, the previous phase that we've done. We're going to review everything in this weekly team meetings. This weekly team meetings for different organization or like a even private project. Sometimes this majority happens on Fridays. Some does their weekly team meetings on Mondays, right? So it depends. We also track all tasks in a project management tool, Trello, Jira, or Asana with a status update. My organization, we do like a report weekly just to state that this is where my project is. This is what happened on my project this week. This is what we intend to do in the next week. So it goes on like that up until you are done with the project. You also have a tracker on Excel where you're able to track your team members. You're able to track um the point which they are on each project that they were assigned to. You also have this tracker on there's also something that we call like an internal it's an internal system that we work with. It was created internally where we have team members write down their issues, write down risk that they think can occur on the project, and then project managers, they prompt the project manager. So we're able to see this and we're able to address it. If there need to be escalations, then we then escalate, right? So also celebrate small wins to maintain team morale during long projects. I mentioned this when I was explaining that as a project manager, you are now going to motivate, coordinate, and then you're going to be a problem solver. In the motivate, I said, motivation comes in different ways. You see, there are certain people that you see just the little encouragement to say, oh, well done, I see you. And I do that a lot. I do that a lot. You just send messages to people to say, thank you. I see everything that you're doing. Well done. Thank you. It just boosts their morale. It just makes them feel seen. Makes them do the work very well, actually. Makes them put all of their efforts in that particular project because the project manager sees them and they are appreciated. And I think this goes out for everybody. So different people with different way of being motivated. Some people is even by as small as saying, oh, my team members, I'm going to get you lunch today. Let's go out for lunch or let's do breakfast. It could also be as small as sending just a token to them to say, well done. That's very important. It boosts team members' morale. It makes them want to give their all to that project. So project managers versus team members roles. Project managers, they plan, they coordinate, they remove blockers to enable the project smooth, right? Developer codes, reviews, and they fix bugs. Quality assurance testers, they test features, write test reports. The UI UX designers, they design wireframes. They design wireframes and then prototypes, right? Business analysts, they capture requirements, while the Scrum Master facilitates agile ceremonies. And then the stakeholders, they review demos and approve features at every point in time, right? This is very important to be stated to everyone that in everything that we run on a project, everyone has their own roles. Everyone has their own roles. For wireframe is a basic visual outline of a design, which is always done by the UI UX designers, right? Prototype is the more advanced version of the design that, we can always interact with. I'm just trying to explain that for, you can always look through to this. These are everyone's duty on the project. So the project manager coordinates these entire people. The plan is done by the project manager. When there's an issue, you go to your project manager and then they fix all of these things, right? The Scrum Master is not the project manager. So people also mistake that. They feel like once you're a Scrum Master, you're the one managing the project. No, No, a project manager is a project manager. There is usually a Scrum Master depending on the kind of project, right? Now let's look at monitoring and control. This tracking progress, KPIs, handling delays, and changes. So tracking progress with KPIs. What's KPI? Key performance indicators, right? So monitoring and control is the continuous process of measuring project performance against the plan. Monitoring and control is the continuous process of measuring project performance against the plan. That's what monitoring and control is about. And this usually is done at every point on the project. At every point on the project, you can't, it's not something you can actually miss out on. At every point on the project, this is done, right? Key performance indicators gives objective data on project health. Even I think everybody, as long as you work in a corporate space, everyone has their own KPI. Everyone has one thing that you're supposed to do that your HR walks you through. I don't want to use the word judge, something that they score you on. So it could be quarterly. There's usually just a KPI for somebody. As a project manager, I have a KPI. I have something that I'm expected to meet up to. I have something I'm expected to meet up to as a project manager. Also, the team members, they have their own KPIs. They have expected things that the organization is requested of them to do. Right? So let's look at Schedule Performance Index. That's the SPI. SPI is the end value divided by planned value, right? This you can see, I'm trying to look for a better way to really explain this to us, right? SPI is the Schedule Performance Index. And then to look at this, we're going to use the end value divided by planned value. So if the SPI, that's the Schedule Performance Index, is greater than 1, then you are behind schedule, right? Then you are behind schedule. But using the Cost Performance Index, CPI, end value divided by actual cost, CPI is greater than 1, then you are over budget. I'll still explain to everyone, I'll explain it better, but just let's look at what's on the screen. I'll come back to it. I'll explain in a very simple way so that we can understand. Sprint velocity, number of story points completed per sprint. This also tracks team productivity over time. Defect rate, number of bugs found per feature. Measure codes, quality, and testing effectiveness. So when we're doing tracking process with KPIs, we look at all of these defect rates, how many bugs were found. We use it to measure the code quality and testing effectiveness. Let's use an example of like a fintech app is expected to work in 2 weeks behind every sprint 3. SPI reviews it early. That's because maybe the end value or no, the SPI is greater than 1, and then they are behind schedule, right? So using a fintech app, if your fintech app is 2 weeks behind after sprint 3, SPI reviews it early. You are able to see it earlier than expected because you've used all of this method. I'll explain the method to us. So when you want to calculate SPI, I hope you get that, right? So you calculate it in that way, and then for project health dashboard, if the SPI is greater than 1.0, it's ahead of schedule. Once the SPI is 0.8 minus 10, then there's a slight delay. Then there's a problem with monitoring, right? Just the same way we have the greater than and the less than. Once it is working this way with the schedule performance index and the cost performance index, then is either there's an intervention needed under budget or budget overrun alerts. Also, the weekly status report to stakeholders. This is important. Your stakeholders should be carried along on everything that is being done, right? Every week, you give your stakeholders reports on what was done on a particular project. You're going to send the weekly report to them. Please, I hope you can hear me. I think I'm having a network glitch. But please, I hope you can hear me.
Yes,
So,
I can hear. Yes, you can hear you. You're audible.
thank you. So, weekly status report to stakeholders is very important for every project manager to submit. And this also gives them a guide into what is going on in the project. It doesn't leave them not aware of what is going on. It makes them also involved in the project. And if there are further questions, they're able to ask you all of these questions with the reports that they have. Escalation protocol for red indicators. So using the method that was shared earlier, if it gets to a point where the red indicators is showing that there's a problem, then we need to escalate. Sometimes it's really beyond the project managers. You raise the issue to higher management, right? This trigger corrective actions. You also give possible reverse timeline or budgets. That could be where the problem is coming from, right? So you just state it clearly and you escalate it. Usually, once the SPI is lesser than 0.8 or the CPI is lesser than 0.8, then there's a need for escalation because yes, there's a red indicator and it needs escalation, right? So handling project delays, right? Delayed recovery steps. Identify root cause. Is it technical, resource, or scope related? What could be the issue? What could have gone wrong? We need to now go in depth to check what the root cause. If you just check it on the surface, you really might not be able to tackle that issue very well. You might not really get it. You need to go in depth to see that was it a technical issue? Was it that the resources were not great enough? Was it scope related? Something with that, if you're able to bring out all of these things, you would fix it. You'll be able to fix all of these project delays, right? Most times people just solve the problems of project delays on the surface. They're not even trying to look deeper to see what really caused the issues. And sometimes they're even able to solve it on the surface, right? But it's definitely going to repeat itself. I promise. It's going to repeat itself, maybe even on that same project or the next project that you're going to go into. But if it is something that you've identified the root cause and you fix the root cause, it definitely will not occur like a random anymore. You already know, even when it occurs, you already know how to fix it, right? Crash the schedule, add resources to critical path task, fast tracking, run tasks in parallel that were originally sequential. Well, you fast track some of these projects. You run tasks in parallel that were originally sequential, something that maybe your previous project, you felt that, oh, we were supposed to do this in a parallel way, then you fix it in your next project. So you do like a fast tracking there. Negotiate scope reduction, defer lower priority features to next release. Increase daily communication frequency during recovery period. Have communications with your team members. When you have this communication frequency, or you have it even frequently you're able to like identify some of these delays. You're able to what is it now? You're able to fix them, right? Afterwards, you then update the baseline and communication revised timeline to all stakeholders. You need to always communicate all of these things to your stakeholders because they're important. So once you're able to identify the root cause, you crash the schedule, you fast track, negotiate scope reduction, increase daily communication frequency during recovery period, then you update the baseline and communication revised timeline to all stakeholders. These are the steps you use for delay recovery, right? Real world example, let's say in Nigeria, example, your mobile app is 3 weeks behind. Backend integration looks longer than planned. The first action to take is add a second backend developer to the critical path task. Then the next action to take is start UI design in parallel with ongoing backend work. The next action is move payment gateway to phase 2 and launch with basic features. Action 4, you send weekly recovery status reports to clients so that they are aware. Then lesson, early detection via KPIs prevents small delays becoming catastrophic failures. This is the lesson that you actually learned on that particular project. And definitely once you get all of these lessons, it helps you not face such again in your next project. We also have like a lesson learned log where you input every lesson learned on each project. And at the start of every project, this is something you also visit, right? In the project, just so that you can use them to work on the particular project you're working on, and some of these issues doesn't repeat itself. Quality management, looking at quality assurance versus quality control, delivering value to users and quality standards in IT projects. So quality in IT projects, that's quality assurance and quality control. Quality in IT projects means delivering software that meets user expectations, functional requirements, and performance standards. That's what quality means in IT project management. Quality assurance is being proactive, building processes that prevent defects from occurring, right? You're checking, making sure that there are no defects on this project. You're doing like a quality check, right? Quality control, reactive, inspecting outputs to identify and fix defects after they occur. Let's assume that, okay, there's already a problem, then there's a quality control that can be done to fix all of these defects that already occurred on that project. This is where the quality controls come in. Testing types, unit testing, integration testing, user acceptance testing, which is also known as UAT, and then performance testing. Definition of done. This is a clear criteria that every feature must meet before it's considered complete. Before we can say that, when let's use bank as an example. When banks are doing like an app and they want to go live, this is they usually have a document that is called definition of done. Might not just be banks, but I'm familiar with banks. I know that I've seen some of these documents from them where everything that they said will be done on a particular app or a particular yes, let's use app as an example. On a particular app, every feature that they've said would be done, they have like a document to state that everything has met its requirements and we are going live. So they call that document definition of done. It's a very clear criteria that every feature must meet before it's considered complete. They would tick it off to say, oh, we said we're going to do this, we said we're going to do this before we go live. And so therefore, all of these features, we've met all of the criteria, excuse me, we've met all of the criteria and then we are done. This is definition of done DOD. It's a document, right? Nigerian context, a payment app must process transaction without failure. Quality is a business critical requirement. Yes, it's a critical requirement, quality. When we are Nigeria, when apps are misbehaving, I'm not sure, it frustrates everyone, it frustrates people. So as much as they are pulling up a as much as they are pulling up to do like an app, they're also taking their time so that it is well done, right? So that it is well done. Quality is not optional when it comes to things like applications, when it comes to a bank wants to build like an ATM space, you want to mount an ATM machine, you want to do certain things around, even building a house. Quality is not an option. Like, it's not optional at all. It is something that you need to really put effort in. As little as even wanting to buy your shoes, quality is important. You want to buy your dress, I think the first thing you should really look at is your quality. If you buy one that doesn't have quality, you will definitely know, and then you'll see the repercussion at some point. So the best thing is to go for quality because it just works well for you on the long run. You are assured that this thing that you've done, it will go well for you because you didn't put quality as something minor, right? So poor quality leads to system crashes, user loss, and reputational damage. Yes, using an app for an example, you're using an application and then you try to open it, it's not opening, it's taking you back, you have issues with it, it frustrates you, and then users will not use that particular app again. You lose users, and then even the system at some point is going to crash because it's a poor quality. It's a poor quality, and also your reputation will damage. As somebody that builds software, you just hear that, oh, don't use that particular brand or don't use that particular organization. They did this at some point and really just went down the lane, which is not something great anybody wants for their reputation. Reputation is important as much as we also want to deliver as much as we also want to just deliver a work, or as much as we also want to just get a client to work with, reputation is very important. Referrals, once you do something great, you do something that has great quality, you will definitely have people come back to you. They'll refer people back to you, right? Quality standards that can help, right, in checking quality in IT projects. You have ISO 25010 software quality model. You have IEEE 829, that's test documentation standard. You have OWASP, security quality for web apps. Google Lighthouse, which is web performance score. Code review standards. We also have user acceptance testing sign off, right? Change management, managing scope changes, clients' expectations, and change documentation. So managing a change request professionally, change is inevitable in any IT project. The key is to manage it without derailing the project. Change is constant, right? Change is constant. Change occurs at every point in time. Even as human beings, we are liable to change, right? Everyone, not something you even planned for, it just happens. So yeah, we have that on every project, change is inevitable, not just IT project alone, basically. I feel like for any project, change is inevitable. But the key point is to manage it without derailing the project. And this is by using your change request log. Once you're able to document the advantage or the impact of the project, or of the change on the project, you're able to now say who even made this request in the first place. You're able to document all of these things. then it's okay to make changes. It's when you don't have documentations at all. That's where the problem is. A change request is a formal document requesting modification to scope, schedule, or budget. At every point on the project, from start to finish, you should always move around with your change request documents. You should always, because change can occur at any point in time, and you shouldn't even forget to document them. At every point it is happening, you have to document them. Let's imagine a client requests WhatsApp integration, dark mode, and offline mode, all after development has started. It should be documented. It should be documented. It's okay to have all of this change. It's okay for a client to request all of this integration, dark mode, and offline mode, but we should have it documented for future purposes. The PM evaluates impact. How long will it take? What is the cost? What will be delayed? So because you never mentioned initially that the client that you wanted dark mode or you wanted offline mode, so the initial plan could have been just, oh, we'll work on all of these things in 2 weeks. But if you come with all of this change, the project manager is able to evaluate the impact, right? To say, oh, it was scheduled for 2 weeks before. We're definitely going to be adding 1 more week to this to deliver this change that you've requested for. And it might not affect the project timeline. We also look at how long it will take. And okay, now we've looked at how long it will take. Let's say it's going to be added 1 week or 2 weeks extra. We'll definitely look at the costs too. Because all of the people you employed to do these things, or the person that you've asked to work on this thing, you didn't put in consideration an extra cost. So with this change that has come, you will definitely look into cost for them. So we're going to look at change control board, a group of stakeholders who review and approve or reject change requests. I'd mentioned that as a project manager, you can reject change, but this is not even done like alone as a project manager. There's usually a change control board, which the project manager would be involved. Yes, project manager will be involved. It's a board where, and they will consist of the stakeholders, right? Where they can review and look at it if necessarily there is no need for a change. They will all come together to agree. They'll review it and approve it, or even reject the change request. So for every change request that comes in, it always goes through this board. It goes through this board. Either they would accept it, either they will reject it. It comes through this board first, and then it's now giving back to them to say, oh, this is what was agreed upon by the change control board. Either it was rejected, you still need to document it. Either it was accepted, you still need to document all of these things. Approved changes must be logged, scoped, estimated, and added to the project baseline. Once the project has been approved, you need to log it in the change log, the scope, this estimated and added to you need to add all of these things to the project baseline to meet up with everything that will be, that has been set to happen on the project. Never implement changes verbally. I know that since I started the class, I've always said document, 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 and it is very important. Majorly as a project manager, one of the major things that you do is to document, really, is to document. Don't accept things verbally on a project. Don't agree to anything verbally on a project. Even when you just have a little conversations with somebody and you just agree on something right there and there, put it down and put it in the right document. Always, always document and sign off. Always document and sign off. When you have an agreement with somebody on a project, put it down, have the person sign off that document to shows that you guys are on the same page. It is very, very important, I promise. It is very important. So that is what is also stated here. Never implement changes verbally. All changes must be documented and signed off. Client submit. Let's look at the change management process, right? Client submits change request form. The PM analyzes impact on scope, time, cost. You present options to clients with trade-offs. CCB, that's the change control board, they review and vote to approve. So these votes depends on the kind of project, right? Yeah. So the change control board reviews and votes to approve or reject. So since it's a vote, right? So majority carries the vote. Yeah. Yes. So we'll just have them review it and then they vote. Whichever way works, either being approved or rejected, is what we'll accept. Would also update project plan and baseline based on the change that was approved. You log in change register with signatures of the change control board. It is important. They have to put down their signatures that they were in an agreement with this change on this particular day, right? You also then communicate the change to the entire team so that they are aware of the change that has occurred on that project. So that it doesn't just happen that it comes up and then they are not aware and they are wondering, when did this change happen? How did this change happen? You will immediately communicate it to them. Once you log it in the change register, you communicate to the entire team members. Team management and leadership. So we're looking at leadership styles, managing conflicts, and motivating your team. Leadership styles in IT project management. So we have the transformational. This is where you inspire the team with a clear vision, best for innovative startups. Servant leadership, you put the team's needs first, you remove blockers, ideal for agile teams. This is basically what you see mainly in the project of now, like most of the projects that's done now. You most likely see the leadership styles of servant leadership, right? Democratic, involve team in decisions, great for experienced senior teams. Autocratic, where you have the project manager makes all decisions, useful in urgent crisis situations only. You also have laissez-faire. This is the team has full autonomy, works only with highly schemed, self-directed teams. Conflict and motivation. Yeah. Conflict resolution. Address conflict early. Ignore conflict escalate and damage team cohesion. Yes. Yes, so when I'm about to start a project and I'm giving team members or I'm assigned to team members that'll be working with me on that project, the first thing I tell them is, please, conflicts are bound to happen, but when this happens, please let me know. Let me know so that we can resolve it immediately. Once it begins to stay longer than what we think, then there's definitely going to be like an issue. And it's going to affect that project. It's just like somebody on a project, you have a team of 4 people, 2 people are keeping malice, and they're expected to be at a client site the next day or throughout the week. It's just going to show that something is wrong because they are not in good terms. But if this has been escalated way before the appointment to client site, it would have resolved all of these things. Nobody would even be aware of what is going on. And it is okay to have conflicts because my thoughts are different from another person's thoughts. My agreements are different from another person's agreement. So we might have clashes here and there, but the best thing is to know how to resolve these things. person needs to know. So the project manager also needs to be alert to certain things. You need to be aware of your team members. You need to know each person by what they do, by their actions, their characters, so that you're able to walk through each of them on your project. Confrontational conflicts. You're going to hold like a private one-on-one meetings before group discussions. You have two people keeping malice on your team. You're going to call them privately to ask them really what went wrong. You will hear from this side, hear from the other side, then bring them together to have a discussion and you will resolve it. There needs to be a solution. There needs to be like something has to be resolved at that point. You have to end that meeting with a clear solution that now makes both of them align, right? Motivation. Maslow's hierarchy applies. Ensure basic needs, fair pay, job security before higher ones, right? You will motivate your team members. Just put them on the know that they are seen, right? Recognition, celebrate team achievements publicly. Team delivers sprint 5 days, 2 days early. Once they do something that is way up, in my organization, they do that a lot. They even go as far back as doing like getting somebody to design um what is it now? They design pictures for you. They just do something to applaud you and put it on the group where the entire team is to say, oh, this person did this, and then you just do it publicly. Let them know that they are seen. Let them know that they are celebrated. Let them know, especially when they do something exceptional, right? Let them really state it clearly what it is that they've done. Just like we have here, a sprint was supposed to be delivered in 5, and then, or sprint 5 maybe was supposed to even be delivered in 1 week, and then they came up with it in 3 days. State it clearly and then applaud them. Possible, you can do more, right? It keeps other people on their toes to be in that space too. Right. Teams face power cuts, connectivity issues, personal pressure, empathy is key. So, yes, it's a Nigerian reality. There are issues with light, there are, network glitch here and there. We can always find a way around these things. If it's something that is so terrible, you can always move meetings. You can always do like a physical meeting if that works. Just come up with something. Because of course it is Nigeria. So we'll always just have one thing to work with, right? So let's look at project delivery and closure. Final delivery, client acceptance, documentations, and then lessons learned. Project closure process, that's step by step. You feature freeze, no new features added, all code is finalized and committed to the main branch. Once you are done with the app, once you're done with the old features, you're not going to add anything to it again. All code is finalized and committed to the main branch. You've done all that it is. What at the final stage, there's nothing that will be added to this, right? Final testing, full regression testing, performance testing, and security testing completed by the quality assurance team. UAT, that's the user acceptance testing sign-off. Clients or end users formally accept the system via user acceptance testing documentation. Then deployment. You deploy the system to production environment, then you go live. Go live plan executed with rollback procedures. Documentation, technical documents, user manuals, APIs documents, and source code handover packages are prepared. Lessons learned. Team retrospective. What went well? What failed? What should we do differently? I mentioned lessons learned earlier. So on every project, at the end of every project, there should be a lessons learned log, right? This for team members, It's also going to be shared with everyone so that they are aware that this is this thing that this is what went well on this particular project. This is what failed. This is what we could have done differently. This is what we will do differently on our next project. It is very important. So the full practical case study, where you have developing a fintech payments app in Nigeria end-to-end project. So let's use like a PaySwift Nigeria fintech payment app. Planning. In your scope, you plan the mobile wallet, bank transfers, airtime purchase. Team, like the first team, you have 1 PM, 3 developers, 1 quality assurance person, 1 designer. The timeline is 16 weeks, and the budget is 4.5 million. So this planning phase is like you writing your scope. And everything that is here is what is needed in that scope document. You said that on this project, this is what you want to do. It's a mobile wallet, and then it's a fintech payment app, right? So on that payment app, there'll be a mobile wallet, there'll be a bank transfer, yes, feature. There'll also be like an airtime purchase feature. And we just want the project manager, just one. We have 3 developers, back end, front end. We want 1 quality assurance person and 1 designer, and timeline is 16 weeks with budget of 4.5 million. Execution, sprints 1 to 3. Then you have authentication plus onboarding. You have authentication plus onboarding. Sprint 4 to 6, you have wallet plus transfers. Sprint 7 to 8, you have airtime plus notifications. Then you have daily stand-ups on Jira. Then you also have Jira trackings. You also track all of these things on Jira. This is your execution phase, right? You've started all of the processes already, right? So authentication, this is where you are verifying who a user is. Are you really who you say you are? That is where you have the authentication and onboarding. Then you have daily stand-ups. During execution, you have daily stand-ups and you have your Jira tracking. You can also use Trello. Challenges: CBN compliance, delayed API approval by 2 weeks. Developer fell ill in sprint 5. Client added push notification feature mid-project. So all of these things, you're going to also face challenges in every project that you do. You would have one way or the other that you face challenges, right? So these are likely challenges that can occur at some point. This can bring in change, except because you have like 3 developers anyways, you can have another developer take charge of what this developer is supposed to do, right? And we can see here that clients add push notification feature mid-project. What are we going to do here? Like we said in previous slides, that it's okay to have change, right? But we are going to now take it to the board. We're taking it to the change board to accept or reject. And we're also going to state it there that a developer fell ill in sprint 5. It's a challenge. All of these things will be discussed. But because we have more than 1 developer, so it's very possible that work continues and we might not have so much to face. But where we have a problem now is where there's a change. So there might be like a lag trying to see if the change will be accepted or it will be rejected. Resolution. So the crash CBN approval task, redistributed task, change request for notification, like I said, approved it 180K additional budget. Well, that can be added if you want to bring in another no, not even another developer now. because they are adding another feature. So once it is accepted, in this case, it has been accepted. So you've written in your change request, you've notified your change request, you've written in there that it is approved, and then with an additional budget of 180,000 naira, right? So the project is good now, we can move forward, right? So delivery, UAT completed week 15. We go live for week 16. 4.68 million final spent. That's we have 4.4% over. That's 98.2% uptime in first month, right? This is like the final delivery we have on this project. This is what went down on this project at the end of 16 weeks. We were still able to make 16 weeks, and that was because even here when we had the challenge of a developer falling ill, because we already planned for 3 developers, we were still able to meet up with 16 weeks. But because of also the change that happened around this place, 180K was added, and we are still able to meet up with the we're able to meet up with the 16 weeks that was planned. So the thing is, if we had just one developer, we might have had to work past 16 weeks, really. We might have to work past 16 weeks, because really, who would have done it? Or we bring in another developer, but the cost would definitely be more than 180K. It would be definitely more than 180K, right? I hope you understand. Sorry, is my screen moving?
You're on the case study, PaySwift Nigeria
Okay,
slide.
I'm trying to move it. I don't know. Maybe network is not moving. I'm
Oh,
coming. Okay, this works.
yeah, section 12. Practical application.
All right, thank you. So practical application and capstone project. Students simulate managing a full IT project from start to finish. So this is a scenario, more like an assignment for everyone to take home to do and submit. So you have like a capstone project, instructions and deliverables. Let's look at the scenarios together. You are the project manager for an educational technology startup in Abuja, building a student portal. The portal must include student registration, course enrollment, assignment submission, and grade viewing. The budget constraint is 3 million in total. Timeline is 12 weeks. Team, we have 4 developers, 1 designer, 1 quality assurance tester. Deliverable 1, project scope statements with WBS, week 2. Deliverable 2, Gantt chart and critical path diagram. Deliverable 3, project budget breakdown with cost estimates for that's for week 3. Deliverable 4, sprint plan for 6 sprints, 2 weeks each with backlog. Deliverable 5, we have final project report including challenges, changes, and lessons learned for week 12. These are going to be the marking criteria. Scope statements will be 20 marks, scheduling and CPM will be 20 marks, budget accuracy 20 marks. So I hope we can have to do this and submit. This is a scenario that we just looked at one, so you can always use that to walk through this. Common advanced mistakes, why they happen, their consequences, and how to avoid them. Advanced mistakes in IT project management. The mistakes: poor leadership. Project managers micromanages instead of empowering team. The result that comes out of that is low morale, high turnovers. So I have a boss that will say, oh, you're doing admin project management, right? Because it feels like you should also be involved, not just micromanage your team members. It's not going to work that way. You should be fully involved in everything that goes on, manage appropriately, coordinate, which is important. Have listening ears for your team members. listen to what they have to say, be opened so that they can also carry along what is going on that project. Yes, they are doing the technical part. You should also be there. You should always be there to ask them challenges, any blockers. Do they need help at some point? Are they overwhelmed? They should know that somebody is there with them, right? Lead appropriately, lead in the right path, lead in a way that carries people along. Once you do all of these things, their morals are high, and then you have a great turnover from them. Lack of tracking, no KPIs or dashboards. The result is going to be delays discovered too late to recover. If you don't have anything that you're tracking with, you don't have tools that you're tracking with, as small as Excel, like I said, as small as Excel, you can use them in tracking your project. You can use Excel in tracking your project, and it works. It works rather than not having anything at all. Dashboards, it could be even any internal face that you're working with. Just have something that you're working with, really. Have something that you're tracking with. Budget overruns, no contingency reserve. The results will be project altered mid-development. When we have a project that is a big project, you did not plan your budget very well. You're done with money, and these project owners are not even ready to bring out money again. The result will be to halt the project midway. Like we're not good. There's no way we want to move forward with. And at some point, those type of projects, you don't tend to even have them anymore. You don't get to see the completion of that project again. It stays there. That's why sometimes you see some buildings that they've started, and then for like years, the building is just altered, like it's just there. Obviously, maybe this is something that happened, budget overruns, something just happened midway. They are not able to even figure every money that was budgeted for it had finished halfway. So we have to do the right budgeting, right? Weak communication, stakeholders unaware of progress. As a project manager, you should always give weekly report to your stakeholders. Always, always. They should be in the know of what is going on a particular project. They should be involved. They should be involved. Don't accept weak communications. Communicate across board to everyone that you know that is involved on that project. Once there's a weak communication, then surprise rejection at review. They will just, by the time you want to come and tell them that an audit is supposed to happen, like, or a check is supposed to happen, you'll be surprised that they'll be looking at you like, we're not aware, and so therefore this might not be able to work, right? And that's not a good thing on a project manager, because you're working with timeline, and once they are rejecting it, something is wrong. No risk management. Risk ignored until they materialize. Risk are unforeseen issues. There are things that you had seen way before, things that you already think, oh, this might happen, something that might happen. You would have seen it way ahead. In your planning phase, you should be able to identify risk on every project. You should be able to, it might not be as much as it is on other projects, but identify risk. Not when it has happened and it has become an issue, then it cost us a lot. Cost us to start fixing emergencies here and there, which will even bring us to spending more and even having to look for more resources. So, but when we're able to identify the risk earlier, we're able to fix certain things even before it occurs. The fixes: fix poor leadership, delegate effectively, hold one-on-ones monthly meetings, lead with empathy, not authority. Fix lack of tracking, set up a KPI dashboard. I've said all of this before. Set up a KPI dashboard from day one: SPI, CPI, velocity, defect rate. Fix budget overruns. Always add 10 to 15% contingencies. Track spend weekly against baseline. Fix weak communication. Weekly status emails, demo meetings every 2 weeks or even monthly. Use Slack channels. You can use any channel really, as far as you are communicating, please. Fix no risk management. Maintain a risk register. Review risk every sprint. Assign risk owners. Have a risk register. Have a risk register for each of your projects. Very important. Have a risk register. What are the key takeaways and conclusions? Core takeaways. Scope definition is the foundation. Define it clearly. Control it strictly. Scheduling and CPM prevent surprises. Plan the critical parts first. Budget discipline requires weekly tracking, not monthly review, right? It's a weekly thing. When it comes to money, when it comes to funds on a project, it's a weekly tracking, not monthly review at all. You do it weekly because you're spending weekly. Even if it was possible, it would have been daily, right? But, it says we should do weekly tracking and not just do monthly review. Of course, monthly review still comes in, but you should do like a weekly tracking before you then have a monthly review. Execution is about people. Lead, communicate, and motivate. Lead, communicate, and motivate. Very important as a project manager. You must lead, communicate, and motivate right. KPIs and monitoring turn problems into early warnings. Once you're able to identify all of these things, you're able to foresee certain things and you're able to fix them. Quality and change management are not optional extras. They are important. They should be done. Closure with lesson learned improves every future project. Definitely. I can say this over and over again. It does help you so that you don't repeat the same mistakes in your next project. Once you have your closure and it includes lessons learned, for everyone that picks up that document, they're able to just align and work with you on other projects and you don't repeat the same mistake. Even when such occurrences happens, you are able to quickly fix it because you've met such issues in a previous project, and the way you fix that, you've documented it, so it's also going to help you fix this one that you just met, and it's also going to help you. Right. So what are career paths that you can use this for? IT project management, Scrum Master, product manager, program manager, Agile coach, IT consultant, solution architect. Anyways, these are career paths that needs to be aware of all of these things and be in the know of all of what has been said today. Thank you so much. If there will be any questions, I'll be willing to answer. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much, Olajumoke. The session was really, really exciting. We appreciate your time and we say thank you. Please, if you would share the material with us so it can be shared with the students in the group. Thank you so much for your time.
Yes, I'll be glad to share the material. Thank you so much for your time too. Do enjoy the rest of the day. Bye.
Yes, and you too.